In a dim stone room, I open a blank leather journal, not to chase names, but to watch how a country is built from stubborn ground and repeating decisions. I draw only river curves and marsh lines on empty parchment, and the candle flicker feels like tide here. Geography is already policy before politics arrives. On tidal flats, the sea rehearses its return, channel by channel, ripple by ripple, as if reminding me that land here is always provisional. Storm surf hits the coast with controlled violence, and I feel the pressure without spectacle, no catastrophe needed, just a constant threat that never sleeps. Along the Rhine frontier, a Roman watchtower and palisade stand in mist, and the river reads like a border drawn by nature and enforced by routine. Footprints press into wet clay near a rough wall sandal boot, then water filling the imprint's empire, leaving traces that don't require words. Early mound dwellings rise above marshland, small wooden houses on lifted earth, and I understand the first lesson: survive by living above flood memory. At a river clee, barrels and rope move hand to hand, and trade feels older than the state bustle without labels, value without paperwork. A scale tips under grain, a cord cinches a pouch, and I hear the logic. Measurement comes first, then trust, then institutions that pretend they invented both. On the gray horizon, longship silhouettes hover like a warning, distant and silent, and the threat is real precisely because nothing dramatic happens yet. Inside a monastery scriptorium, lamplight warms stacks of parchment while a page is scraped clean, blankness prepared like a weapon for memory. A knife trims parchment edges and dust falls in slow motion, and I watch fibers up close, thinking how civilization often begins with careful empty space. Villagers stack sod and timber at the marsh edge, tamping earth into a line while water seeps nearby, and the first dike looks like belief made physical. Standing on damp earth in the wind, I press my palm to the new embankment and feel it clearly. The first border here is a promise to keep repairing. In a timber hall, silhouettes deliberate toward a plain steel press, and authority appears without banners, quiet, local, and built to repeat itself. Stone blocks rise under rope hoists as a cathedral tower grows upward, and I see ambition made vertical, faith, city, and labor climbing together. Across peat bogs, dark blocks stack beside shallow canals, and the land lowers as water rises, a trade that will demand interest for centuries. A windmill turns slowly above a wet polder while I circle at ground level, and the blades feel like a calm machine arguing with the sky. In a Hanseatic harbor, a broad-bellied cog sits in cold light, rope and barrel and plank, and trade becomes a second coastline made of timber. A brick city gate meets a narrow canal bridge, worn stones guarding water, and I sense the moment cities learn that defense is also hydraulic. Floodwater spreads over a polder under storm-gray light, a farmhouse roof barely above waves, and I don't need faces to feel the scale of loss. Afterward, reeds and new channels settle into quiet wetlands, and I watch the landscape accept its new shape, loss becoming geography becoming memory. In a Burgundian-style court, rich textiles glow by candlelight as a blank sealed packet changes hands, and centralized power feels elegant and heavy. Coins pour into a cloth pouch and the cord tightens, and I hear the unspoken rhythm of tax and war chest money gathered long before consent is asked. And Antwerp, like market, glides past crates, cloth, spices, and river traffic. And wealth here looks like motion goods moving faster than beliefs. A printing press lowers onto a blank sheet, ink and pressure without letters, and I realize reproduction itself is power even before the message appears. In a hidden room, faces hover around a single candle, hands clasped, and the tension is pure restraint, belief kept quiet because the cost of noise is known. Inside a church, statues are covered and removed with careful hands. No smashing, just absence, and the rupture arrives like a room changing its breath. Armored boots step onto wet cobblestones, a cape edge passes frame, and authority arrives as weight presence first, explanations later. At my candle desk, I draw a single crack line across a blank coastline map and pause, because provinces don't break cleanly when pressure is applied. A secret council closes a blank packet as if sealing a decision back inside itself, and I feel the revolt begin as silence turning into commitment. Small ships slip into a quiet harbor at gray dawn, a gate left ajar, and I watch history enter without fighting stealth as politics. A bell rope is pulled and the fibers strain in close-up, and I remember that news travels faster than armies, especially in a country of waterways. Earthen ramparts sit under heavy sky, smoke far away, streets too quiet, and I understand siege as pressure time tightening without visible violence. Water is released to floodfields, and flatboats glide toward distant walls, and I see the Dutch logic. Sometimes you sacrifice land to save a city. Bread and fish rest on plain cloth, a hand breaks one piece and stops, and relief becomes a quiet ritual, as if gratitude must stay disciplined too. Two groups exchange blank sealed packets in a civic hall, guarded faces rehearsing unity, and I feel how fragile peace is when everyone counts the cost. Hands tie plain ribbons around 3 stones on a blank map, binding them into one bundle, and the union is shown as a knot, not a speech. On a canal bridge at dusk, I hold the journal shut, then loosen my grip, because union is kept by hands and habits, not by slogans. Wax seals a blank parchment while a crown-shaped shadow slides away, and I watch sovereignty detach itself quietly, as if legitimacy can simply withdraw. In a high-ceiling hall, silhouettes gather around stacked blank documents, and the new governance feels heavy administration replacing improvisation. A delft corridor falls into sudden stillness, only a dropped glove, an unmarked ribbon, cold window lightened. I feel the shock without a body shown. A boom chain stretches across a broad river under an overcast sky. Traffic halted, and I see the siege as economics frozen in place, not cannon fire. A great city gate closes as merchants carry bundles north into mist, and the fall of Antwerp becomes migration talent, moving like a tide. Amsterdam docks expand with wood cranes and half-built hulls, and I watch momentum form, plank by plank, as the center of gravity shifts northward. A compass draws one perfect circle on blank paper, then another overlaps it, and I feel mapping become power geometry, training the world to obey. I place 3 wet pebbles on a blank coastline sketch and nudge them into a single line, because ports aligning can make a republic grow a spine. Soldiers drill with long pikes and plain flags, no combat, only discipline. And I see reform as choreography designed to survive panic. In mist, a star fort's angles emerge as the camera rises, and defense becomes mathematics, earthworks shaped to absorb violence before it arrives. A shipyard builds a practical merchant ship with tar and rope and curved ribs, and I sense efficiency as a worldview, not just a design choice. A heavy seal presses onto a blank charter packet while a ship's bell rope sways beside it, and the VOC is born as paperwork with ocean ambitions. Sail silhouettes glide out of harbor into sea haze, wind-driven and quiet, and I watch the Republic reach outward as if expansion is simply the next step. In an exchange hall, merchants gesture over cloth-wrapped samples and scales without numbers, and coordinated commerce feels like choreography of trust. 2 wax seals are set side by side on blank parchment. Hands withdraw slowly, and the truce arrives as a pause relief that still tastes cautious. Aerial over a perfect drained polder, grid canals, dikes, fields in crisp geometry, and I see mathematics used as a patient weapon against water. In a waterboard meeting, men lean over a blank dike map and one finger traces a canal line, and governance looks like hydrology practiced in public. Canal houses rise in brick and timber along a narrow street canyon, pulley wheels turning, and urban growth feels precise, dense, and quietly confident. In a studio, oil pigments are mixed on a palette, and the canvas stays abstract, unsigned, and I watch restraint become style, as if calm itself is wealth. Standing at a studio doorway, I gesture from paint to the canal outside, because this republic sells goods, but it also sells stories about itself. A glass disc turns under a hand as lens slurry glints in window light, and precision becomes advantage, small improvements that change what can be seen. On a ship deck, sailcloth is folded and rope coiled beside a plain brass ring instrument, and I feel readiness without numbers skill replacing signage. In a regent's room of dark wood, blank maps sit like controlled secrets, and I sense power as administration quiet gestures behind closed doors. Across a canal at dusk, 2 different church silhouettes share the same water and light, and coexistence appears not as debate, but as routine. A drum cord is tightened beside sealed blank orders, my hand pausing before release. And war resumes as tension you can feel in the smallest motion. On foggy ramparts, guard silhouettes watch and wait. And I learn again that war is often boredom with consequences, measured in nights without fire. A merchant convoy moves in formation through choppy gray sea, and the discipline is visible, because commerce here must travel like a protected line. On a frozen canal, skaters glide in pale winter sun, a windmill distant, and everyday life continues under treaties and war as if refusing drama. Bulb fields stretch in rows into dawn mist, quiet wealth turned into pattern, and I watch desire become agriculture without naming the obsession. Beside a windmill canal, as rain begins, I look straight ahead and admit the truth. A country can't rest, because water never signs peace. At dusk, the quay is empty, one lantern fighting wind, and I feel 1640s fatigue while costing even when nothing moves and no one speaks. In a negotiation room, delegates sit as silhouettes with blank parchments stacked, and diplomacy feels like weight silence arranged into an outcome. A final wax seal is pressed, 2 seals complete, hands withdraw, and the candle flame steadies, as if the piece of Munster is simply the room exhaling. At sunrise, city bells ring over gabled rooftops, and I tilt from canal reflections to the skyline, because recognition arrives as calm, not fireworks. On a blank map, stones are rearranged into one coherent cluster, and a hand smooths the paper edge, and a republic becomes a fact you can't erase. A merchant ship enters a golden harbor while workers guide ropes, And peace turns outward, not as relief alone, but as renewed momentum. Along a grassy dike, inspectors probe soil with simple sticks, and I understand maintenance as citizenship. Peace still demands routine vigilance. Hands weave wet reeds into a mat as water drips. And craft becomes infrastructure, the kind of quiet technology that keeps land inhabitable. On a polder road at sunset, my journal opens and wind flips one blank page, then settles, and I smile faintly at how fragile continuity looks. Aerial over canal grids and fields stitched together, and I feel the map become real, the landscape itself performing the logic of control. In a warehouse, sacks and barrels stack in window beams with no labels, and trade becomes muscle abundance organized into repeatable motion. A needle pulls thread through a blank book cover, stitching slow and precise, and knowledge circulates because someone keeps binding it together. At night on a canal, lantern reflections ripple as a small boat glides silently, and prosperity feels quiet, almost like a secret kept by water. The storm returns and waves push against the dike, but it holds, and I watch endurance without drama, pressure answered by structure. A hand places fresh sod onto a worn dike edge and presses it down firmly, and I understand the thesis: maintenance is nationhood. Water droplets slide across a blank map and pool into a coastline curve, and I see how water still edits every plan, even when ink is absent. A fishing village sits on a calm inland sea, small sails and drying nets in morning haze, and humble maritime life continues beside grand trade. Bells rise over rooftops in warm light as the camera pulls up, and institutions, rituals and routines quietly hold the grid together. I close the blank journal and set it on canal stone, then meet the lens. This was a country made by waterwork and a few irreversible dates. The final aerial pulls up as polders and rivers fade into the North Sea horizon, mist dissolving into sunlight, ending on continuity from land to water.